So I found I found a creator online who talks about the way reality works, and I wanted to play a bit about what she says because I think it's important to understand the fundamentals of reality, the matrix, and how to navigate it. And the way people break it down, especially luxissimple, is an amazing way, and it helps you to reboot yourself so you know what you're doing in reality. So let's check it out.
I swear, the more I research and read and learn, the more I come to understand that we as humans are such magnificent creatures. We are so beyond what we perceive ourselves to be in the physical. We are the equivalent of cosmic creatures from a fairy tale book.
That is so true. We are literally made up of fairy dust, cosmic dust, the universe itself. And sometimes I think we forget that, but let's continue.
Most of us will just never know unless you dive deep into quantum physics. It is so fascinating. We're literally balls of energy with powers that most of us would never be aware of unless you actually look into it. Clairvoyance, astral projection, it's all real. And it's all rooted in the topic of today's video. Here's what a lot of people don't understand about consciousness. Scientists assumed that consciousness was a side effect of our complex biology, right? Neurons firing, chemistry happens, and somehow this gives rise to consciousness. But that explanation had a problem. And the problem was that no one can find consciousness inside the brain. We can map neural activity perfectly and still not find subjective experience.
You can find all those things, but you can't find consciousness within the brain. That's how you know, in my perspective, listening to what she has to say, that sometimes scientists really do be focusing on the science and they don't focus on the spiritual part, which is not really balanced because they're so fixated on experimental and proving things or showing the facts. Facts are important, don't get me wrong. But when you forget about the spiritual part, I think that's why they're looking for something that they're not going to find in a scientific formulation.
I am behind perception. And that's why physicists now consider a different model. Consciousness as a fundamental field of reality, like gravity, like electromagnetism. It's not something that's created. It is something that is ever present. The brain doesn't generate consciousness any more than a radio generates music. It receives it, it filters it, and it localizes it. So what does that mean for you? Well, if consciousness is a field, then attention is an interaction within that field. What does that mean then? It means that expectation matters more than you know. What you focus on matters more than you know. What you emotionally react to matters more than you know. It actively shapes your experience here, not spiritually, physically. Your internal state literally changes what you notice. It changes what you had access to in this reality. It changes what paths are available to you in this reality. And the truth is that this reality, this experience, this existence is limitless. And all you're doing is tuning into a slice of a much larger conscious system. That is what is so entirely fascinating about us. What you choose to give your attention to, what you choose to tune into, is what you have access to. And that can be anything. If you want to know more about the quantum mechanics behind manifestation, how it works, and why it works, the link is right in my bio.
It sounds very simple, but sometimes it's not, because there's so many things trying to get your attention. But wherever attention goes, that's where energy is going to flow. And although it's mentioned that this is about the physical reality and the physical experience, everything comes from a metaphysical point before the physical point. And even your attention, which is something like an awareness before it even hits your eyes, is the focal point, or where you start from and where it flows from. Thank you, luxissimple, for breaking that down for the world, because yeah, we are more magical than you think, whether you want to think it's folly or not.